Today on TuffTrax, the new Micro Machines monster races with the big boys. 1989 world champion David Morris pilots no problem, and the Outlaw goes way out of bounds. TuffTrax, everyone. I'm Scott Douglas, standing right in the middle of what figures to be one of the more interesting courses on the TNT Monster Truck Challenge for 1990. This course is very, very tight, and you'll notice a guardrail running right down the middle of the two lanes, barely 10 feet from each set of cars. No question about it, this course at Myrtle Beach Speedway is going to make for some interesting racing here on TuffTrax. But there are already interesting stories being developed in the pits, and certainly the one that has taken top billing today involves the no-problem Ford Bronco. John Moore will not drive that truck this week. He's got himself a new driver, and what a driver he has. The 1989 world champion, David Morris, who earlier this year left the Equalizer team in a dispute, has resurfaced, and today, Morris will drive no problem. Army Armstrong is standing by with more on that story.
Well, thanks, Scott. We are standing trackside with the new team concept for the no-problem monster truck. John Moore, tell me about this new team idea.
Well, I decided to step back a little bit, put a younger driver in, and see if we can do a little better in this point series.
Let me bounce over here to the younger driver. It's going to be a young man that you're familiar with, David Morris, back in the saddle again. How does it feel?
It feels great to be driving a monster truck again. John, he's going to give me an opportunity to drive his truck, and I'm going to see if I can do the best I can with it.
Well, John and Heidi Moore have always had a good running truck. You know he's going to put a good truck underneath it. What about your confidence as a driver since you've been out for about 9 months now?
The truck's going to be a lot different from what I've been used to driving, probably, as far as everything goes, but I'm going to go out, try to get used to it, and make some good passes and keep getting better and better.
Have they put you on any kind of pressure? You know, being a world champion, a lot of people are going to expect you to go immediately to the head of the class, and you might even do that yourself, but there's going to be a learning curve here. Are you ready to take the time it's going to take to learn how to drive this truck?
Oh, sure. It's going to be a learning process, but we'll do the best we can do.
Well, Scott, there we have it from trackside. Back to you.
Thanks, Army. I know monster truck fans everywhere are looking forward to seeing David Morris back behind the wheel of a monster truck, but this time the no-problem truck. You know, this is going to be the last sight for monster truck racing. These 2 weeks will be in Myrtle Beach. That Bigfoot 4 is part of the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. Then Bigfoot 8 will be allowed to return. Of course, you remember the Bigfoot 8 controversy, dominating the sport early in the year, then banned by TNT to allow other truck builders to catch up with the technology involved in the Bigfoot 8 truck. Right now, Chris Chapman is standing by with the owner and builder of the Equalizer, Gary Cook, to find out what he thinks about the prospect of having to once again race Bigfoot 8.
Thanks, Scott. You're exactly right. Bigfoot 8 has been a point of contention all this year on the TNT circuit, but the big story now is, are these trucks going to be able to compete? And one of the trucks that would be able to compete is Equalizer, and the owner of that is none other than Gary Cook. Gary, do you believe that your team's going to be able to come in there and hang with Bigfoot 8?
I don't know. We're going to make some more changes before we go back to the New York circuit with the new Bigfoot 8. We're going to give it our best shot, but you know, Bob Chandler has built a super good truck, and it's got the finest engineering that can be done, and our trucks are not up to his, but we're going to give it our best shot because we have run with that truck consistently, maybe not winning as much, but we've proven we can run with it. But for a point deal, it's going to be nip and tuck all the way. We're going to give it everything we got.
Have you talked with your driver, Greg Holbrook, about the strategy for the upcoming tour?
Yes, we've talked about it some. We're just going to go for it. That's all I can say is we're going to go for it. You know, we'll give it everything it's got, and we'll put everything into it we can.
Well, speaking of drivers, we can't pass up the opportunity to let everyone know that David Morris, their former driver, is going to be driving John Moore's No Problem. How do you feel about that, him coming back on the circuit?
Well, you know, he always did a wonderful job for me, but I think he's going to find out that this truck's the best truck.
Thank you very much, Gary. And that is the story with the Equalizer. Back to you, Scott.
Chris, we haven't even started racing yet here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but already there's plenty happening behind the scenes. TuffTrax is brought to you by Nintendo, makers of the Nintendo Entertainment System, and exciting library of great games. Nintendo, now you're playing with power. Back at beautiful Myrtle Beach Speedway, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Scott Douglas, Army Armstrong, and Chris Chapman with the superstars of monster truck racing on the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. Time to look at highlights from the qualifying round of competition. Already completed. Army Armstrong, the Outlaw.
Well, Mike Wine came out with a brand new engine. A lot of horsepower wasn't used to. When the run took off, he had everything going. Then he got in a lot of trouble. The horsepower actually was working against him. He said, hey, I got to get over the wall, so he just bursted, jumped over the wall. The engine's making a horsepower. He's getting used to it, but that was an awfully expensive run right there.
Well, he's been looking forward to getting this new engine in the truck, Army, but this was not the kind of run he was hoping to put down.
For a new engine, this is an awfully tough track. You said in the opening how narrow it is. There's only about 10 feet on either side, 5 foot to the left, 5 foot to the right, so you can see you have no room for error. He bursts the throttle, it jumps left on him, he does all he can do. He just tries to drive it out. We got another camera angle coming up. They're running the motor real fat. You notice all the fuel coming out of the exhaust, so he's aware that he might have some problems with his new setup.
And problems at the end of the run as Mike Wine puts the Outlaw on top of that retaining wall. Army Armstrong caught up with driver Mike Wine.
Well, for about a year and a half now, Mike Wine and Nick Rossi said the only thing we need to be competitive is a new motor. You guys have got the new motor. You're making a horsepower, but now you got other problems.
Yeah, I underestimated the motor ungodly. I went from 800 horsepower to well over 1,500 horsepower. We just picked up a new sponsorship, our Super Winch out of Connecticut. Jeff Fowler out of Columbus, Ohio, just built us a beautiful, fantastic throttle response motor. Went blown alcohol injected. When I came off the first set of the cars, Army, the old motor, I could just hang on to it. I was not afraid of it at all to throttle it. I throttled on this. When she went sideways, I was hoping to pull it back out. I let off of it. When I throttled it again, I was on my side. The biggest thing in the world when you're on your side or knows you, as you know, is to throttle it. I throttled it for all she had, and she took me up and over the wall.
Well, understand you're not going to be able to make the first round tonight. Nothing to do with the motor. It's working good, but you're not going to be able to get a tire back on this vehicle.
You believe it or not, after all that wildest run and going over walls 3 foot tall and everything else, one tire messed me up. A 3-inch cut and a tire messed me up.
Well, you got the new motor. Now it's time to go bear hunting with the switch.
Yep, now we're starting to go switching in on it, and we're going to have to start carrying a spare drive shaft and a lot of spare transmissions.
Mike Wine's Outlaw will be out for the rest of this day, but we'll look forward to seeing that new truck again in action on the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. I'll tell you what, we're going to see it again here in just a moment because it's time for the Crunch of the Week.
Hold on to your seats for the amazing Crunch of the Week, brought to you by Micro Machines, the #1 colossally collectible vehicles in the world. If it doesn't say Micro Machines, it's not the real thing.
We'll see 10 trucks going side by side, Army, because this one's not going to make it to the first round. The Crunch of the Week, the qualifying run of the Outlaw.
Well, Mike Wine and Nick Rossi with the Super Ridge Ford are trying to play catch-up with Bigfoot just like everybody else. They're trying to do it through the engine department. They've got the horsepower. Now they got to find that chassis, Scott.
Crunch of the Week, and you saw him land on the wall, the Outlaw. John Moore's No Problem has a brand new pilot. We documented it earlier. The driver of the year from 1989. The No Problem driver is David Morris. John Moore looking on very, very intently. You know, David Morris won hands down the driver of the year honor from a year ago, winning the world championship in the Equalizer. This was when he took it all home in Freedom Hall last October.
There's one big difference. The suspension of these trucks are so different. Moore is driving a new animal tonight. I'm anxious to see how he's going to react. But like you say, he won the world championship because he was the best driver last year.
Happy days for David Morris right there when there's of course his wife and Gary Cook. They were a great team a year ago, but it fell apart earlier this year. Morris quit the team early this season, and now he is resurfaced. But as you mentioned, Army, it's a whole different truck he's trying to drive. John Moore.
Yeah, John Moore is anxious. I'm watching. I think Moore is actually a little bit more nervous than Morris. Morris is back in the driver's seat. Let's see what's going to happen. The truck having a little bit of problem. Very wisely, the driver backs on the throttle. Now, you got to remember, like we said earlier, this is a very narrow course. It's a tough course to learn on.
I think I'm going to have to speed the steering up a little bit for him.
Looked like he clipped that wall. Could you tell?
Yeah, he got on the rail a little bit.
Well, what do you think of that run?
He did real good. did. First run against anybody. He did real good. I'm real happy with it.
The thoughts of John Moore talking with our Chris Chapman right as David Morris completed his maiden voyage in the no-problem Ford Bronco. So David Morris in his new ride will go into side-by-side competition just a little bit later. He'll be seated into the first round, but I'm sure he'll be one of the slower qualifiers as he really didn't hammer it at all. Well, the truck he drove to the world title a year ago has the new kid on the block, Greg Holbrook, behind the wheel, and he has been impressive of late, Army.
Yeah, he's been impressive ever since I've known this young man. He was impressive when he used to race the ATV circuit years ago. He stepped up to go into monster trucks. He says they handle exactly the same. Look at the left-right movement of the equalizer. Quickest time of the day, Scott. Quick time goes to the equalizer in Holbrook.
You talked about impressive 7.06 at Myrtle Beach. Equalizer lays down the fast time, and that'll put him into a good bracket heading into that first round of competition. David Morris is in the no problem. Greg Holbrook now in the equalizer. We're going to have to keep the names straight throughout the day. It's Greg Holbrook's equalizer taking on Clydesdale in the first round. John Piant, Bigfoot number 4, against Morris is no problem. Then we'll see Wild Hair against Mopar Magic. The Gravediggers here. Dennis Anderson takes on the new Micro Machine. And rounding out the first round of competition, it's King Kong against the Carolina Crusher on TuffTrax. Back on TuffTrax, we're ready for side-by-side racing competition on the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. If the Gravedigger is the hard luck truck of 1990, this is a close runner-up. And I was talking about the first truck you saw, the Clydesdale-Bennett Clark. He's been having a rough year, and here he draws the equalizer.
Bennett Clark changed over to a supercharged alcohol-burning engine. That engine will make horsepower at sea level. Look at this, and we're at sea level. Bennett Clark is for real with the Clydesdale. That could be the upset of the year. Bennett Clark finally got to a point, sea level, where that motor will make horsepower, and he just strong-armed his way into the next round, Scott.
Huge upset as the Clydesdale knocks off the fast qualifier, defending world champion and current points leader, the Equalizer Chevrolet. Here you'll see him come to the line again. Bennett Clark wins it, and Army Armstrong's going to catch up with it.
Bennett, an awful lot of people may call that an upset, but you put a new motor in there where it's sea level, you're just making a whole lot of horsepower tonight.
Yeah, we've been having a little trouble with it. We came from a different altitude. We tried the same setup we had with the last place. The motor's running great, and I'm tickled with it.
Tickled indeed. He has upset the Equalizer and is into the quarterfinals. Now, David Morris, driving the no-problem truck, has to battle for Ford supremacy against John Piant and Bigfoot. Chris is with John Moore. Let's go over to Chris now.
Are you concerned about the truck?
No, I believe the truck will be all right. I don't think we've got anything to worry about the truck.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
After being a driver, he's now just an owner, a crew chief. David Morris driving his truck, the no-problem Ford, against John Piant and Bigfoot. Army, they're off.
He's an owner, a crew chief, and the most interested spectator here because he's watching Moore do his thing. Not good enough. John Piant rules the roost in that round with Bigfoot. Oh, Morris in trouble. Jumped over the guardrail you talked about, Scott. That guardrail is really going to give some of these guys some kind of problem before the night's over. Replay's coming up. Give it a call for it.
Watch it here as, first of all, easy win for Bigfoot 4. He puts the no-problem truck away by a bunch. Both trucks then veer left, and watch David Morris and no problem come over the guardrail. You saw it right there. Army Armstrong is caught up with Bigfoot 4 driver John Piant.
In qualifying, the motor had that awesome mist in it again. You got rid of the mist, you're starting to win.
Yeah, it seems like we guessed on jetting again. We played around with it a little bit this morning, and the temperature changed a lot, and we think we got dialed in. The Ford Claim Bigfoot's really running good.
Real quick, something major for the World Championship could have happened, that being the fact that your nemesis, the Equalizer, is out of this thing now.
He still might have a chance to come back slow loser. You never know. I'd never count him out.
Thanks, Army. Let's go over to Chris Chapman. She's with David Morris.
David Morris, world champion driver, 1989. Do you think you can repeat your performance driving John Morris, no problem?
Yeah, no problem. He's got plenty of motor to do it. If I keep the truck handling, I haven't got used to the steering difference in the two monster trucks, but once I think I get the steering worked out, we'll do fine.
Well, David Morris certainly is not discouraged. Boy, look at that shot, Army.
And remember, John Moore just a moment ago told Chris he's going to have to speed the steering up. So they're both thinking the same way in order to solve this problem. Who's coming out next?
Well, we're getting ready for the Wild Hair and Mopar Magic. There's Gary Wiggins from Williamston, North Carolina, the Dodge known as Mopar Magic. And he'll go head-to-head with starving Marvin Smith, the old stopper driver. Marvin is out in the Wild Hair Chevrolet.
We were talking earlier about all the new engines and everybody trying to catch up with Bigfoot number 8. Marvin Smith is going the same way the Outlaw 4 did. He's trying to step up through horsepower. A lot of horsepower, new supercharged alcohol-burning engine. Let's see what he can do with this Dodge.
He was the third fastest qualifier. That was a surprise. We'll see if he can back it up in racing.
Boy, the Dodge is running good. Mopar Magic making him work for it, but Wild Hair looks like he's going to take the big win in the next round on a very skinny track, Scott. Very skinny, yeah.
You're right. Marvin Smith gets the win, but boy, the Mopar Dodge did push him. Here they'll come to the finish once again, and Marvin Smith legs it out by about 3/4 of a truck length to give the Wild Hair the victory. That'll push him into the second round. Mopar had a good run. He may come back later as a fast loser. There's Marvin Smith hopping out of the truck, and Army Armstrong's headed over to talk to him. Army?
Well, Marvin, third quickest qualifier on a real wild track. It kind of seems like the wilder the better in your case.
I don't know about that, Army. It's really a tough track out there. The thing you got to watch out for when you come off that first set of cars, you got to make sure that you're lined up. The lane that I'm running has a little curve at the end. If you ain't lined up just right, it's wall time. So you got to make sure you're just right.
Qualifying is so important because that's going to give you the lane choice the rest of the evening then to keep you where you want to go.
Exactly. That's what I was shooting for. I was hoping, to stay over there as long as I can because I actually turned my wheels in the air that time before I came down because I wanted to shoot the other way because it was actually headed for the guardrail.
Here you see what Marvin's talking about. That little bounce shot him toward the guardrail, but he's okay. And Marvin Smith gets the win. Let's look at the TNT Monster Truck Challenge points. Heading into the late stages of the 1990 season, Equalizer has expanded his lead to 40 over Bigfoot. The Auto Value King Crunch is still a player for the championship, and so is the Carolina Crusher. Awesome Kong rounding out the top 5. The Steve Cain truck is followed by USA 1 and Steve Wilkie in the number 6 hole. But Gravedigger hopes to pass him today from the number 7 spot, maybe to number 6. Nightlife, Outlaw, and the Buffalo Tremor rounding out that top 10. We're coming back with more first round action from Myrtle Beach. May be one of the big matchups underneath a lot of Christmas trees this year in the form of the Micro Machines, because the Gravedigger and the Micro Machines truck, two of the most popular toy models, are now about to race with the big boys doing the job.
Yeah, you can buy these, put them on the Christmas tree. Before the year's over, they got 17 monster trucks that all the kids in America are going to get a chance to have. But right now, who's going to win this round? We're going to find out real quick. Anderson, I believe, is in the good lane. However, the kid out of Missouri is trying to make a name for himself. He can do it in one fell swoop right here in Myrtle Beach.
Kurt Fischer in the Micro Machines. Dennis Anderson, the Gravedigger. Here they come, Army.
Fischer takes the win.
Maybe the biggest win yet for the new driver of the Micro Machines, Kurt Fischer.
The second major upset of the night.
And there was nothing wrong with the Gravedigger. The Micro Machines just beat him. Army, this has got a different suspension from the Bigfoot truck and the Equalizer truck.
Everybody's playing the game, trying to figure out how to do it. They come up with a new shock absorber that's used exclusively of off-road racing. I tell you, those shocks are working for Fischer. He just put a big nail in the coffin of the Gravedigger.
Yeah, the suspension was the difference. Watch Gravedigger on the second set of cars get a little sideways. I think that's what cost him. Here they come. Now watch Dennis. He had to come back, see? He got thrown a little sideways, and that gives the victory to the Micro Machines and Kurt Fischer. Army Armstrong is going to talk to Kurt right now.
Well, the Breen boys said they found the right combination when they hooked up with the Micro Machines and this driver, Kurt Fischer. Kurt, it looks like you guys are here. The new shock, the new suspension, everything looks great.
Boy, Army, I tell you what, we battled this for the first month now since the truck's been out. The truck never did a real good showing. We got it all together this week to come down here. We didn't get to try it before we came down. Of course, the Breen boys, that's the way they are. They like to do stuff like that. So we come down here and we tried it and we're happy.
Obviously happy, obviously thrilled with a win over the Gravedigger. Steve Cain and King Kong. And if you've been been with us the last couple of weeks on TuffTrax, you have seen this truck really rejuvenated, and the old warrior, King Kong, has been as strong as anybody the last few weeks. His opponent is supposed to be this truck, the Carolina Crusher, but he is on the clock. Now, the clock in monster truck racing is a 5-minute clock. That's how much time he has to get to the line. In the meantime, let's go to Chris Chapman with Dennis Anderson.
Dennis, thought you and the Micro Machines were going to get together there at the end of the track.
Yeah, it was pretty close. This is a pretty wild little track here. You know, tapers down towards the end. We start growing together, you know, and it's a pretty wild run.
Let's talk about the track. Do you think this is a very safe track?
It's so-so, you know. I just don't like these close guardrails. That's why I think the inside lane was a better lane, and I had lane choice, but I let Micro Machine get it. But I don't like running between those two walls there, you know. That's why I chose the outside lane, and which I got a little off course there, and I'm glad I picked that lane now.
Have nothing to be ashamed of. We just heard that Micro Machines has the fastest time of the evening.
Yeah, he's fast. I mean, it's a new design, and I knew that he was going to kill it because he wants to put me away, because if he puts me away, you know, that guy, he's got it then. You know, if my truck doesn't break and I can get a good hard run and he beats me, he's doing something.
We'll probably see you back as a fast loser. Good luck.
All right, thanks.
Chris is right. We'll have 3 fast losers coming back, and that means the Gravedigger, the Equalizer are both very likely to come back a little later. King Kong is still waiting. There's about a minute left, and the Crusher has fired. Army's got about a minute left, and the crowd has heard the noise.
Yeah, you know, the crowd can really get involved in this. This is a good rule. You've got 5 minutes to get to the lane. One of the things I'm going to be looking for is Gary Porter is looking pretty good to make the start. The Kong truck out of Texas, this is the truck that Steve learned to drive in. Everybody's familiar with Awesome Kong, the skinny truck. However, King Kong, the truck we're going to be watching now, they brought it out of mothballs to help chase these points. This is his nest. This is his old pair of tennis shoes. He's more comfortable in this big old orange Ford than anything out there. However, now he's got to get past Gary Porter and the Carolina Crusher. So it's going to go down real quick here at Myrtle Beach, Scott.
You hear the roar of the crowd as Gary Porter brings the Carolina Crusher to the starting line. Richie Schaefer will tighten him up right there and then send that light green. And it's Carolina Crusher against King Kong. Big Chevy, big Ford.
Watch for King Kong to attack. This kid drives this truck like nothing I've ever seen. He's not afraid of it. He's comfortable. There you go. See what I'm talking about? He comes right out with Porter and puts him away. Third major upset of the day in Myrtle Beach, Scott.
Indeed, but I don't know how much of an upset it is, Army, just because he's been so strong lately and because of that comfort factor you talk about. Steve Cain obviously loves to drive this monster truck.
Well, he took a big win with it in Bowling Green, Ohio, so, you know, he is comfortable with it, but he's proven it.
Army's going to work his way over to him now after a very impressive victory. Steve Cain's your winner. Army, here he is.
Steve, you guys have done something different, and it's sure working for you.
Yeah, the truck really seems to be hooking up real good tonight. I'd really like to thank my transmission man. He built a heck of a good tranny, and, you know, everything's holding up real good tonight.
You like this truck better than Awesome Kong. You know, let's call it like it is. You drive this truck more aggressive than Awesome Kong. Why is that?
I don't know. I don't know if it's the size of the truck or what it is. I guess I just feel more at home in this truck.
You're more comfortable.
Yeah, I am.
We understand now that Gary Porter has more problems than just getting his truck started.
So, Gary, when did you lose second gear?
Well, I lost second gear the very first run of the night in qualifying. The first time I shifted to second gear, I think I busted, you know, the sprag in there, and I'm just having to shift from first to third, and I think it cost me that race there.
A very strong run by Kong nonetheless. Do you think that the delay maybe made you get your mind off the race a little bit?
I think it did, and, you know, I was really worried about getting out there. The batteries went dead, and you know, all the other guys, drivers, helped me get the truck started, and I got out there on the line, and when I pulled to the line, I knew I didn't have second gear. You know, I just had to run the best race I could.
If you do come back as a fast loser, will you be able to correct your problem?
No, the transmission will have to be pulled out, and it'll take us about an hour to fix it, and we won't have time.
Not going to be Carolina Crushers night in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Let's look at how the pairings will go in the quarterfinal round. Remember, several fast losers are coming back. First, Clydesdale meets Bigfoot. Then I want you to see where Equalizer has ended up. If he can beat the Wild Hair, he'll either get revenge against Clydesdale or a shot head-to-head against Bigfoot. In the bottom half of the bracket, Micro Machines comes out against Carolina Crusher, back as the second fastest loser, and Gravedigger was the fastest loser. He'll meet King Kong. It's all coming up here on TuffTrax. folks, the major league in monster truck racing is the TNT Monster Truck Challenge, and we got a classic Ford Chevrolet showdown. The Bigfoot Ford against obviously an improved Clydesdale Chevrolet. Army Armstrong, you talked about the sea level factor earlier. It's made Clydesdale a better truck.
Yeah, but both drivers are aware of the situation. John Piant's found some horsepower too. This could be just a good old-fashioned side-by-side race. The Ford of Piant muscles it out the other end. John Piant back in form with Bigfoot number 4.
Bigfoot looking good as the foot puts one down heavily on the Clydesdale and puts away the Chevrolet of Bennett Clark out of Powder Springs, Georgia. Let's watch it again as Bigfoot 4 impressively dispatches Clydesdale.
They went over the first hump side by side, but boy, when they came off, Bigfoot was much cleaner. Made a great run. Now, Piant, they had a problem with that truck. It was a miss. That miss is gone. They're back in the winner's circle. Hey, we could be watching a big one tonight here in Myrtle Beach, Scott.
Coming right at you. You see Clydesdale left the first set of cars at a bad angle, and Piant was straight as an arrow. Bigfoot 4 gets the win in Army. That's something to keep in mind as this night goes on. Obviously, you've got to stay straight on this course. That bodes well for guys who can go consistently, and so far, Bigfoot 4 and John Piant have been straight and consistent.
Hey, Scott, this is a weird night. Okay, look what's happening right now. The quick qualifier, who has lane choice, in my opinion, is going to the bad lane. He's coming to the lane that has a guardrail on each side. I can't understand why. Meanwhile, Marvin Smith lines up in the free lane or the wide lane, but Smith's lining up a little bit crooked. So, man, there's some weird things going on. Look at Smith. He comes out and looks like rear-wheel drive only, but the Equalizer comes back
and wins.
Yeah, wins on a tight lane, Scott.
I call that lane claustrophobia because those walls are so tight. And man, when you look down, if you're in Greg Holbrook's seat, it's just got to look like the narrow path to get through.
But see, Greg Holbrook has had lane choice. He had quick qualifying time. That gives him lane choice all night, but he picks this lane.
Army, he must believe that lane is significantly faster. That's all you can figure for him to take a lane that seems to be so much more dangerous and so much more nerve-wracking. Hey, it worked for him. Holbrook got the win. King Kong gets ready for Gravedigger, and Chris Chapman's with Dennis Anderson.
Dennis, after that run against Micro Machines, you've come back and you've made some adjustments, and you're still making them right now.
Yeah, I came back and I leaned the motor out a little bit, cutting a little bit of fuel back on, and put a fresh set of plugs in it. I turned a 699 that run, and King Kong, he turned like a 667. So we're going to try to clip him on this next run if we can.
How bad do you want him?
I want him real bad.
Superstars of monster truck racing in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, at Myrtle Beach Speedway. Scott Douglas, Army Armstrong, Chris Chapman, and Micro Machines against Carolina Crusher. Now, Micro Machines was very impressive in his opening round win over Gravedigger. On the other hand, we know Carolina Crusher has problems, Army.
The problem the Crusher has, he does not have second gear. He can leave with the other truck, but then he's got to let the other truck get out on him and mile an hour him on the other, and he can still win, but he's got to do exactly what he's doing right now. But Fischer's not going to take it.
Look at the bounce at the end for the Micro Machine, but he still got the win.
Boy, both of them were driving out the back door on that one, Scott.
Give the victory to Kurt Fischer. The Micro Machine is looking good for the Breen Boys Racing Stable out of Jefferson City, Missouri. Again on a replay, here comes the Micro Machine.
Now the Micro Machine right here in the track has an advantage, but Porter tries to reel him back in. Not going to be it. Fischer is for real.
Lots of bounce on the end. You'll look at it again. Micro Machine's on your left, Crusher on your right. The win to Kurt Fischer, and he's with Army Armstrong.
Heard you come out of this thing kind of licking your wounds. What happened? Rough ride?
Yeah, I landed, I guess, on the left rear, and it just kind of, I had 2 weeks ago in Louisville, I had some damage to my arm, and I've still got it, I guess, because it's back there again.
What about the truck itself? It looks like you guys have a ride.
Well, other than the dipstick coming out and blowing a little bit of oil all over it and making a little bit of smoke, getting everybody worried, it's perfect.
Perfect is the way the Micro Machine driver feels about his truck. We'll see that truck a little bit later. Here we go. You talk about two big bad dogs. It's the Gravedigger and King Kong.
stand-up time in Myrtle Beach. The Gravedigger rolls out with both headlights. Scott, he's told us many times when both the red lights are on, I'm like the old red light bandit. I'm going to hammer you hard to the wall. Who's he going up with the wall with? The kid out of Texas. The truck he's comfortable with. This could be one of the best runs of the year. Both drivers ready to go. Side by side over to first, Joe.
Oh, what a finish. Digger's got the victory.
Yeah, you got to call it. I couldn't tell.
Dennis Anderson and the Gravedigger, they're going nuts in Myrtle Beach as the Digger has pulled it off. The adjustments Chris Chapman found out about must have worked because he looked super strong. And Kong laid down a great shot. Dennis Anderson and the Gravedigger just beat him. Wow.
That was one of the best side-by-side. Replays coming up, we understand. Look at side-by-side. A little bit of blue smoke out of Kong. At this point, they both pull the trigger. He just jumped further through the air to take that win, Scott.
Yeah, I don't know. If that track's a little bit longer, Kong might have won the race. But when they crossed the finish line, Dennis Anderson's Gravedigger still had about a wheel-length victory as Anderson in front of a big crowd at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There you see the margin of victory for Dennis Anderson. It's less than a wheel.
Dennis Anderson, the word we get, you take the win by one red headlight.
I'm glad of that. You know, we went back in the pit. I looked at his time and looked at my time. And I told my teammate there, Kim, I said, I think if I lean the motor 5 points, put a fresh set of plugs in it, we can put him out. We got the power to the ground all right, but in that run right there, I just sheared the back drive shaft in it.
So, do you have another drive shaft to get back in this thing?
Yeah, I've got another drive shaft, but I don't know if we can change it fast enough. You know, we don't have U-joints set up in it and everything like that, and the safety shields is a big deal. You know, we have to have them on it.
That's Gary Cook and Greg Holbrook. Apparently, those two fellas are involved in one of the few trucks that's still at 100%. As we have learned that the Micro Machine apparently has developed some axle problems in its victory this run here over the Carolina Crusher. Chris is back in the pits with Kurt Fischer. Chris, update us on what's going on in that story.
You had some problems in that last run. You going to be able to get everything back together to face the the Gravedigger?
We're going to try. We busted an axle, and it's just an outer axle, so if we can get it back together, fine. If not, we're going to go ahead and run it the best that we can, and we'll get her together tonight, and we'll be ready for tomorrow.
In the world of monster truck racing, is that a vital part that you might be messing up, or is it just minor?
Well, in our truck, we don't run all the components that a lot of people run because we use more horsepower and we'll end up breaking them, so we run a different front axle, which is easy to find. It's just that all of our spares naturally at home right now.
Do you have enough power there to knock off the Digger, who looked pretty good that last run?
Well, I beat him last pass, and he came back as fast loser, but it depends on whether the axle gets put back in or not.
Thanks, Chris. Micro Machines has problems, and so does the Gravedigger. He is in a race against time to make the semifinal and a chance to avenge his loss to Micro Machines. Continues in the Gravedigger pit as Dennis Anderson hopes to be able to get it ready, get that drive shaft repaired, and make it out for the semifinal round where he is scheduled to meet Micro Machines in our second semifinal matchup. But first up, look at this. The two chief combatants for the World Championship. The defending champion, Equalizer, his main nemesis, Bigfoot.
Now, the Equalizer's back in this thing solely through a technicality. He was put out in the first round. If this kid has ever been under pressure, and I have never seen him react under pressure, it's going to be right now. If he's going to mess up, it'll be now in a right lane. I don't believe John Piant's going to mess up. Bigfoot gives the okay. This could be a super run. Piant doesn't move. Equalizer goes out.
Choked down right at the start line. Bigfoot had apparently more of the carburation problems that have plagued that truck.
I noticed the Bigfoot driver did give a thumbs up to the starter. That was an indication that, yes, everything's gold. He was ready. The truck just did not react, and Holbrook just flat put it on kill. Look at that.
Boy, Greg laid it down, but again, it was the starting line that killed Bigfoot number 4. Chris Chapman has got John Piant. Let's see what the problem was.
John, you had some problems on the line with Bigfoot. What happened?
The easiest way to put it is just driver error. I just made a big mistake, and we didn't go nowhere when the green light come on.
What's going to happen now with the Bigfoot team? Bigfoot 8 will return to the circuit. Can you make any predictions? It's been touch and go all year long between you all and Equalizer.
It seems like Andy's been running the truck a lot on the West Coast, and he's got a lot of bugs worked out. He knows the truck a lot better than from when he left the circuit, and he's going to be coming back real strong. Everybody else better watch out.
There you get a look at it, ladies and gentlemen. In just 2 weeks on TuffTrax, the return of Bigfoot 8 and Andy Brass, and the Big Four thinks he can still pull off the World Championship.
You know, Scott, that's kind of interesting, the respect that John Piant has for Andy Brass. John Piant is an awfully good driver himself, driving the old number 4 truck. So nothing to be ashamed of, but right now we're going back to the start line with the walking wounded, it looks like.
Indeed, it'll be Micro Machines coming out against Gravedigger. Again, that return of Bigfoot 8 is just 2 weeks away. Make sure you're being here on TuffTrax. You can't miss it. Look at this, Dennis Anderson with a smile on his face. Army, he hasn't had a lot of smiles in 1990. It's been a rough year, but the digger is fired. The crowd loves it, and he and Micro Machines are going to go head-to-head.
Right now, he's rolling around. We're keeping an eye. Everybody's helping everybody. We've never had such disarray at an event this year. Upsets, lane choice, everything. It's just a weird night, and that's the kind of night that favors the Gravedigger. If you remember historically, when everybody else is having problems, this guy's grinning.
Now, we understand the digger's repairs are 100%, but the Micro Machines axle is not fixed. Digger has the big advantage here. He doesn't have his red lights on, but they're telling us the drive shaft should be ready to go, but Micro Machines is just out here for points.
Good. Like I said earlier, it's amazing how when everybody else seems to be having problems, all the luck falls towards the Gravedigger. Look at Anderson. A good run. Not a killer run, but a good run. Good enough to get him into the next round without hurting anything. So he'll go to the next round basically 100%, Scott.
You know what the next round is? The Monster Smash final against the Equalizer. The Digger and Equalizer, both beaten in the first round, come back through the fast loser rule, and one of those two trucks is going to take home the championship in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. On the replay, Micro Machine was broken and just came out to give it his best shot.
Well, like you just explained to the people at home, it's not over till it's over, but we're almost to the final. Blue Chevy, black Chevy.
And it's going to be a black and blue final, you might say, a real street fight. Hey, the Micro Machine looked awfully good tonight before the problems. That truck's going to be a player as time goes on. Let's go to Chris Chapman and get an update on the truck with Kurt Fischer.
Well, what happened was the round before we broke the front axle, and we couldn't get another one in it right away, so what we did was there was still a piece in there, and we thought, well, maybe it'll hold. Well, what happened, we went to the line, and all we had was rear-wheel drive, and it just burned the tires up right on the line. So transmission's okay, but we need an axle before tomorrow.
Gravedigger lost in the first round, but he's coming back to meet the Equalizer in the Monster Smash final. Here's Army with Dennis Anderson.
Dennis Anderson, you and the Equalizer in the final.
Yeah, I like that.
Why do you like it?
Well, the truck's running good right now. Got a little bit of water spewing out of it, but that's the way it likes it. We went back and fixed the drive shaft. You know, I rung a drive shaft the round before. We got put on the cloth. We made it. We tapped him out, so now I'm ready for the Equalizer.
Coming up next on TuffTrax, Gravedigger and the world champion Equalizer in the Monster Smash. Dennis Anderson thought he had his truck repaired, and it never went when the light went green. something else. Obviously, Greg Holbrook doesn't look in the rearview mirror. He never let off one little bit.
Greg Holbrook drives his own race. Nothing intimidates him, nothing worries him, and nobody's going to take more money home tonight than he.
You're absolutely right. And the Gravedigger, we'll have a chance to talk with Dennis Anderson, I'm sure, in a moment, as a very, very bad break for Anderson. I know he wanted to win very much. Thought he could get it here tonight over the Equalizer, but Greg Holbrook has proven to be the best of the best here at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The big Chevrolet is up in front of the crowd, and a lot of folks look at the young man who may be our next world champion driver, because Greg Holbrook is increasing that lead over Bigfoot in the points chase.
Yeah, it's really an interesting all-American story about Gary Cook teaming up with this young kid to win a world championship. Hey, it can only happen in America, and it might just happen in the Monster Truck World Championship point chase.
The Equalizer, the beautiful blue truck out of Springfield, Tennessee. There's Dennis Anderson, very unhappy about what happened to his North Carolina-based Gravedigger truck because it couldn't go in the final. Chris Chapman is headed over right now to where Dennis is getting out of the truck. Let's go to Chris now. Chris?
Dennis, what in the world happened out there?
I think I stripped a gear in the transfer case, and I come off the line super hard, and truck's pretty heavy, you know, and I got a strong motor in it, and those transfer cases and axles just don't like to hang with it all the time.
What went through your mind when that light turned green and the Equalizer took off?
Well, I was just pushing the pedal to the wood, you know, and what can I say? The truck broke.
Dennis Anderson's Gravedigger not able to go in the Monster Smash final, making it easy on the Equalizer. And look at the Equalizer continue to increase his point lead as he now stretches it out, 485 to 436, a 49-point lead over Bigfoot. The Auto Value King Crunch is third. The Crusher is about to overtake him with Awesome Kong fifth. Gravedigger has moved past USA 1 into the number 6 position. The Nightlife, Outlaw, and Buffalo Tremor continue to round out the top 10. But the story remains at the top, where Equalizer is stretching and stretching the lead. But it's just 2 weeks from today here on TuffTrax when Bigfoot 8 returns. And I know a lot of Ford fans think that is when things are going to change. But you can see the man on the top of the mountain right now is Greg Holbrook, the pilot of the Equalizer Chevrolet. Chris Chapman working her way over to talk to Greg about an impressive run at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and another big victory for the Equalizer.
Greg, if we could take just a moment of your time. Congratulations have to go out to you. How do you feel after that win?
It feels real good. I didn't hear Dennis over, but you can't ever tell, so I just didn't let out.
So you didn't know that Dennis wasn't right there with you while you were making that bonsai run?
I really couldn't tell, but I didn't think he was, but I just stayed in it anyway.
Bigfoot 8 returns the next time here on TuffTrax. What are you going to predict?
He's going to put on a good run. Maybe we can run with him.
Do you think that you have the truck, the capability, the power to take Bigfoot 8 out of it? Because he's been a very strong contender when he's been on this circuit.
Yeah, he run real strong at the first. Now I've had some experience under my belt, and he's going to have to work for it if he gets it.
Not to downplay the seriousness of this, but you done good tonight. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Equalizer on top of the mountain at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. But, Army, I've got to say it again. It's just 2 weeks from today here on TuffTrax. Bigfoot 8 returns. But is this kid ready for him? He's hot as a pistol now.
You know, everybody in the sport's excited about the return of Bigfoot. I tell you, really up front, this kid is not afraid of Bigfoot 8 or any Bigfoot truck. He's got a lot of confidence in himself. He proved it tonight. Look at the replay. He was running all night long out of what everybody was saying was the bad lane. That's the killer lane. Stay away from it. And this kid goes straight as an arrow in this sport.
The Equalizer is on top, but it's not long before he has to meet up with the new Bigfoot 8. That's in 2 weeks, but you gotta be here next week on TuffTrax. We're at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina again, and you're gonna see this race to its conclusion. This may be the scariest, most awesome race in the history of monster truck racing. You're gonna see half of it right now. What King Kong is doing is just the beginning of his problem. You will not believe the finish of this wild run for Steve Cain and King Kong. It comes your way in its entirety next week here on TuffTrax. For Chris and Army, I'm Scott Douglas. You've got to be here, and we'll see you next week.